Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of the Perform Happy podcast. My guest today, Sophia Campana, is an international gymnast she wrote a book by the age of 20. She was a member of the Italian national team. She learned a whole second language as an adult. I mean, you're just an incredible human who cares a lot about the future of our sport. Sophia, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. I'm honored. And as we were chatting before, I'm such a fan of Rebecca's content and love what she's inspiring in the gymnastics and sports community. So I'm really happy to be involved in this. Thank you.
Awesome. So great to have you. So I would love, of course, to start with how did you end up competing for the Italian national team as a girl from Colorado? Would you tell us this amazing story?
Sure, sure. So I was only 10 when I found out through my choreographer. His name was Geza Pozart. He's a very renowned choreographer in the United States now. He was Nadia Comaneci's choreographer, Mary Lou Retton, who else? Kim Zmeskal. And within his travels, he understood that with two passports, gymnasts could compete for either country. And so when he found out that I had grandparents from Italy, he goes, Sophia, you could get your dual passport and compete for Italy. And I was only 10 years old, and in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be so cool. Like, I watched the Gladiator movie with my parents and went to Rome and fell so in love with my heritage and had such a respect for my grandparents' journey and where they came from. And so in my head, it was like, do my dream, my grandparents' country. That sounds so honorable and awesome. And I just fell in love with the idea. So when I was 15, we just on a whim had no idea how gymnastics worked here, how anything worked, who to contact, but on a whim sent an email to, at the time, the Olympic team director. And we're like, hi. I said, hi. I was a level 10 gymnast at the time. My name is Sophia. I'm a level 10 gymnast from Colorado. I can get dual citizenship. Can I come try out for the team? And and he said, sure. And I couldn't believe it. I'm laughing because telling the story sounds kind of absurd, but that's really how it happened. He said, okay, sure. So
I love it. You
I
just you just email the team director for the Italian national team.
I
Like,
know,
hi.
casually send an email from like my like Gmail. Hi, I'm Sophia. Like
I love it.
but
Well, you
it
don't know if you don't ask, right?
right, right. I mean, worst that can happen is to say no. So you got to shoot your shot. So I went out there for the first time when I was 15. I thought I spoke Italian because I grew up speaking Italian with my grandparents. Found out, hard truth, I did not speak Italian. I spoke a dialect that my grandparents had brought over to the States with them and having then spent their adult lives in the States, they didn't evolve with Italian, how it changed into what Italian is today. So I went over to Italy with a dialect and nobody understood me. I didn't understand anybody. Um, and that was one of the fun parts of it. But was totally not ready for the elite level of gymnastics. Level 10 to elite is a huge jump, totally different ball game. And I was so not there. So they were very wonderful and kind and warm and welcoming, but they said, we're gonna have to send you home. So I stayed there for 2 months during this whole trial period. And went home upset, but also so inspired
Mm.
and even more passionate because I had lived a slight snippet of my dream in those 2 months. Even though I didn't make it, it was like the going for it was so cool. I was finally living what had been in my head for years since I was just a little girl. So I came home upset, but also just so driven and ready to just give it my absolute all. I wanted to go back and try it again. So what happened after that was I continued to compete level 10 and train elite skills. Like some of the things for level 10, like a bar dismount wasn't required, whereas in elite it was. My vault was a 10-0 start, which was like a Yurchenko layout, but the girls on the Italian national team had a full 1.5. So I was behind in many areas. Also the artistry in Europe, they spend so much time on the artistry, and I always felt like I was a good dancer. But then I went to Italy and I was like, oh my God, I feel like so ugly right now. Just because they were so beautiful and flexible and did an hour of ballet every day. And their posture was just so pristine. Um, anyhow, so I continued to compete level 10 and train elite for the next 3 years and continued to send emails back and forth to the Italian coaches that I had met when I was there, videos. Hey, I got this new combination. Hey, I just won this meet. I just won nationals at level 10, blah, blah, blah. When can I come back? I had no response for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And my my parents have always been extremely supportive, and also wanted to make, they didn't grow up in gymnastics. They didn't really know, none of us really knew what the odds were. I mean, I kind of knew, but didn't, of me making an elite team. And so they kind of were like, well, maybe we should think about, schools, like a plan B. And I had a coach at the time who was like, you should have a plan B. And he was just thinking for the best of me, you should have a plan B. What if you went to do college gymnastics? That'd be so cool. And college gymnastics is an incredible accomplishment. It's so challenging to do, especially this day and age. And in my mind, that just wasn't my dream. Doing gymnastics in Italy was. So although I was like, I don't want a plan B. I guess we'll have one. I had actually committed to University of Arizona, and continued to send emails, got no response until I decided I was going to send my last email. And if they didn't respond to me, then I was going to be done. I was going to close this chapter of my life and move on. I gave it my all, and that was it. So I sent this last email, and I'll never forget. I was in the car with my brother, my younger brother, and he knew how much I was involved with this, my heart and soul, and I opened my phone and I had a response. And she said, you can come in June and try out again, train with us. Oh my God. 3 years had gone by. I'm like, I seem like a psychopath. But it was like, oh my God, oh my God. And my brother Antonio, he goes, so you're going back to Italy, you're going back to Italy. And he's like, oh my gosh, he got out of the car and he ran to my side and he opened the door, and I got out and he hugged me, and it was so beautiful. And so I went back to Italy. I trained with them for another summer, and I was supposed to go in August to start training with University of Arizona. Um, and my last week in Italy, the coach who I was training with pulled me aside. She was head coach of one of the top elite teams, as well as had some national team gymnasts from that club on the team at the time. And basically, there's a league in gymnastics. It's called Serie A. It's like Europe's pro league of sports. Um, and so all of the best teams in Italy go against each other. It's televised. It's really huge here. And my last week there, she pulled me aside and she, Sophia, we've seen your improvements and you're ready. We would like to have you on our 2015 team. Would you like to compete for us? And my whole world, it stopped, but it didn't, because it's like in my heart, I was like, I know my moment is coming. I know I can do this. Even though I was so not there 3 years ago, it's crazy. I mean, I can even land a double back. And then at 17, I finally got my double back, got my double pike, was getting my releases on bars, my series like nailed on beam. And so I was like a late bloomer. It was kind of like it shouldn't have even happened. Like looking back, like it was just kind of crazy, just because I was such a late bloomer in a lot of my skills. But it did. So I was shocked, but at the same time wasn't, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so I said, Yeah, of course. I guess I'm moving to Italy. Okay. So yeah, I called the U of A coaches, and they were absolutely incredible. And Bill and John, and they said, "So you can come back to college in 4 years, but you might not be able to go and compete elite gymnastics in 4 years for Italy. So do this." And I, to this day, I'm so grateful, and I tell this story thanking them because, of course, a commitment to a college is a big deal, and for them to support my best interest and dreams as an athlete meant so much to me, to just have that blessing,
Mhm.
their blessing.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I just can't even imagine like the heart explosion when you've tried and you've tried and you've tried and the doors have shut and shut and shut and shut and then finally the door opens and you walk through it. Like like
Yeah.
what an amazing feeling that must have been to have, like achieved this dream. So then here you go. Did you speak Italian yet? What was going on? What was that transition like, going and living in a new country and doing your sport?
Yeah. So I was speaking much better Italian. Thankfully, the girls on the team spoke a little bit of English, and they were really sweet. And I'm still best friends with a few of them today. And they actually taught me how to read numbers because of pointing on the vault runway, like the vault measuring tape. They would, like, we would take turns, and then that was like our game. So like I would take a turn and come back and wait in line, and she'd say, Sophia, 20, which means 20. And so then we go again, and she'd teach me 30, 30, and I would repeat it, 30, 30. And that's how they first. But also just, being like immersed in a new country, you learn. And well, I believe personally that you learn hearing it, you pick up automatically, like you just start to understand. But then speaking it, I believe, is a choice, because I know a lot of people who don't want to start speaking it, and it's really hard. It's very embarrassing. It can be very, oh, I'm in such embarrassed. I'm an embarrassment of myself over the years, like the mistakes I've made in Italian. That's like a whole nother podcast, but it's hard to put yourself out there, and you feel insecure. You feel like you can't really laugh because you don't really understand anyone's jokes. And like, it's hard to start. But if you make the choice to just be like, okay, it's not gonna be perfect. I have to start somewhere and just start talking. And I still mess up in Italian every day, but I speak fluently and understand everything now. And so the technique worked. Anyone
Awesome.
who's new language, just start speaking.
Yeah. I mean, I
Um,
mess up in English today, so I don't blame you.
nice,
It happens.
nice.
Yeah. So you had this big dream that
Yeah.
like you might have been embarrassed by, reaching out and being shut down. You might have been embarrassed by trying this new language. You might have been embarrassed. There's a lot of times where it seems like you really had to put yourself out there and kind of risk failure and be vulnerable in pursuit of this dream. Was it just the dream that kept you going? Like what kept you on this path?
Yeah, very much. Good question. Even, my coach, my initial coach that brought me up to that level when I went the first time, he was like, they're all gonna make fun of you. When you go there, they're all gonna make fun of you. They're all gonna hate you. And I was like, why would they hate me? I'm a nice person just doing gymnastics like they are. But the girls, not all of them, but a lot of them were very mean. They did not like the American coming in, and um it was that was an interesting and hard side of it. And my coach actually told me, if you want to go try out and compete for another coach, that I was not allowed to come back into his gym. So he basically like shut doors to my second home. And I let go of all of that to go to Italy, because I call it, in my book and in my videos, I call it our fire. um some people call it passion, um love, um intuition, even
Mm.
intuition. And I just had a fire. That was what got me going every morning. That's what I wanted. That's what got me. I could just feel my fire. I was like, I want this. I want this, and that's what got my blood rushing and me excited and my energy and it gave me such a reason to just live. Like I can't explain it. I just knew that I needed to go that route, and I've always been like a little hard-headed. And so I think that too, like in this particular area really helps me. Um, because I wasn't really gonna take no for an answer. And I did risk a lot. I lost, some close people to me throughout the process, but I know that was the journey that I was meant to take. And so just feeling that and knowing that, I didn't really have any doubts, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah. Where does that fire come from? I mean, I know some people, like for me, sports psychology, the second I met a sports psychologist when I was 12 years old at gymnastics camp, I was like, that's it. I'm done. That's the path. Like I am clear. And I, barreled through hard stuff to get on this path. I just knew. Was it like that for you? Does everyone have a passion like that or a fire? Or is that something that you have noticed that people can like grow into or find? If someone's like, what's my fire? What's your advice to them?
Great question. Kids ask me that all the time, especially because that's what I talk about a lot on my social medias. Follow your fire. And that's a great question. And um, I have a few different ways to answer, and I think different answers can apply to different people. I think one, sometimes like when we think of what's our life purpose, it's like it's such a big question that it just the pressure of it, like it like harbors you from even trying to think and figure it out because it's so big, it's too big. And so I like to break it down and say, what do you like? Just what do you just
Mm,
like? What do you enjoy doing? If you had nothing to do for the rest of your life, what would you spend your days doing? If you didn't have to worry about money, didn't have to worry about a job, for little kids, they don't think about money yet. But when it comes to like adults, I say, if you didn't have to think about money, what would you do for the rest of your life? And for kids, like, what would you do for play for the rest of your life? Where would you go play? And so that's one way I answer that. And another way I answer it is I think a lot of times our passions can be clouded with what he thinks, what she thinks, what mom and dad think, what my coach thinks I can or can't do, what my teacher says I can't do. People say you can't, and what's wrong. I like this, but that's wrong. I know a lot of artists who are like shamed. Well, you can't. It's not going to be a good career path one day, or you'll never be good enough to get to this level as an athlete. So I think sometimes we know in our heart, but
mm.
it's so scary to take that leap because if we fail, we let ourselves down, we let everyone down, and so we don't allow ourselves to see it, and it's so sad. It's just stuck in there.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really have to let go of what people think and just if you like it, you try it.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's our sense that we have as humans to knowing where we're pulled towards. That's our way of knowing. Oh, this is for me, and it's like that. It's that immediate feeling that we have.
And it's, it makes me think about the young adult I was post gymnastics, where I don't know if this is your experience too, where it was like, you go here, you do this, you hit that, yes, ma'am. Like it was very much like a compliance oriented sport where you're given instructions and you follow the instructions. There wasn't much like, I don't think that feels safe, or maybe that's not the right drill for me, or there was none of that. And when I was coached, it was like, you just, sir, yes, sir, or get off my beam. And so I went into my young adulthood not really knowing not knowing what music I liked and not knowing what my yes was and what my no was. And I feel like gymnastics can really breed this compliance into people. Like, was that good enough, coach? Was that okay? Instead of going, that felt good. I'm proud of that. Like, did you notice that, or did you have this ability within yourself to go, you know what, I feel differently from what I'm being told? Like, how do you relate to that, like compliance in gymnastics?
I totally relate to it. I mean, I love the way you said it. I couldn't say it as good as you just explained it. I mean, you explained it so well. And I totally think that is something that holds then adults back from moving into their individual adulthood. And the way I've explained it, or related, the way I can relate to that in ways that I've explained that experience, has been just obedience. Like, we're so taught to be obedient. If we're obedient, we get prized, we get rewarded. And so obedience is good if, if you've got a coach who's going to respect you.
Mm.
Obedience is good. But if you are working with someone, whether it's coach or in a work environment or whatever, if you're with someone who is not going to respect you, it can be very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, going to the European culture, there's we've got the whole like European coaches. You just sort of know in America what that means. Oh, the European coaches. It means they don't take no for an answer. They like two words and you will do it. I'm obviously stereotyping. There are, I'm sure, very many European coaches who are phenomenal out there, but there is this stereotype. So I'm curious if there was an increase in that when you found yourself training in Europe, and I don't mean to put you on the spot or, call out any coaches, but I'm curious if you noticed that going into this new country to train at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, it's easier for me to talk about now. A couple years ago it was harder for me to talk about because there was so much fear around talking about some of the things that happened in the gym. It's like when bad things happen, we still felt like we were in the wrong and we deserved those things to happen to us, and that we were not supposed to tell anybody. And so now it's way easier for me to talk about, and I'm happy to share it. And actually, I talk a lot about it on my social media and my YouTube channel because I realize how important it is to educate as you're doing young kids. Part of my problem going into this was um, I was naive, and I thought, well, it's a different culture. This is just how they do things. Who am I to just come into a new country and judge how they do things? This is how they do things. And two, that was the first Olympic training center that I had ever been in. So again, in my head, and at this time, when I went through the major culture shock and European coaches, which there's no exaggeration there. It's it's very, even to today, is very much so, and that's the reason I'm not training here anymore. Um, but going in and training then for my first time and being surrounded by Olympians, I thought, well, maybe this is just what it takes to become an Olympian. Um, and when you get so deeply passionate and obsessed for a goal, and you've lived your whole life for that goal, you do. I mean, my coach would tell me to do insane things, and I would do them because in my head, she's the Olympic coach. She knows how to get me to the next level. So I need to do what she says. If I want to get there, I need to suck it up. I need to do what she says. It's not going to be easy. Getting to the elite levels I got to be tough, and this is going to be torture to get there. But that's what I deserve. That's what it's going to take, and that's how you think. And I mean, I was 19, let alone these little girls who are 10, that for them, it's just so normal. And actually, this is like a question that comes in my mind is it is it almost easier because they've never seen it? There's a better way. It was almost like hurt my heart more because going into this new culture, which I'll explain in a little further detail, um, I just hurt, not even like the things they would do to me, but watching some of the things that happen to these young kids. I was like, this is not gymnastics. This is not gymnastics. This is not Gymnastics, like gymnastics is my whole love and heart and world. And it is such an amazing and beautiful and fun and joyful sport. And this is their experience in that. No, like this is so wrong. um, so the first thing that I guess it kind of slowly built up and up. And the first thing was the loudness, the voices, the yelling, the screaming, um, and the belittling, insults, a lot of like physical, you look like you got fat today. You look like you got fat today. You're fatter today than yesterday. Just like little things like this. Oh, so ugly. Or, oh, that sucked. Oh, you can blur this out, but well, I'll just say F head. Like they would call us F heads all the time. And that was the first thing that I noticed. And again, Italians like to raise their voices in their hands. So and I was like, it's just how Italians talk. I mean, I've got a huge family, and when you go to dinners, I mean, we're not mad, but we just talk with our loud voices. So I'm just like, maybe that's just Italy. I don't know. All I knew is that I had a lot of anxiety going into these practices. Okay. So, um, after like some of that, then some of the things I started to see were some of the physical stuff. Um, um, I saw a little girl. She was 10 and she was trying to. I'm not going to share names because it's not my those aren't my details to share. But she was trying to do a bar routine and she kept messing something up, and so her coach got up on the spotting block that was up to the high bar, and he held her in handstand for minutes and minutes and minutes, and her arms were just like wobbling, and she was just crying and couldn't catch her breath, and he just held in his handstand, and finally just like threw her down, and she like he threw her onto the mat, and he jumped down, and she just can't even catch her breath for how hard she's crying, and she's tired, and he brought us over to the stall bars to punish her. And so I mean, she didn't have any arm strength left, but he hung her up on the stall bars, and he said you have to do 50 leg lifts, and she couldn't even pull her feet up because of how tired her muscles were from this whole thing, and so then he got even more mad, and started putting her feet and like throwing him into the bar, and you could just hear her knuckles hitting the bar and hitting him harder and harder, and us in the gym, we couldn't even focus. I mean some of the girls were kind of more used to it, but I just had like a pit in my stomach, and I didn't do anything. I was just kind of in shock. I didn't really know what I should have done, and but it just hurt us all to see this happen, and she got down with just broken skin, and I mean bruises and blood, and it was just absolutely horrifying. And that was one of the typical practices that you would see there. Um, and Yeah, it really started this whole question in my head to, is that what it takes to become a good athlete? Um, and it brought me through this really dark phase as a gymnast because, I mean, not even just for my personal, like in my personal experience, it was like, is this what I've always dreamed of? Is coming to live through this? Um, but then also, like, is this what it takes to become a champion? Like, we idolize these champions so much. Is this what we idolize to become? Is to live through this and endure this, and who knows how many years, maybe the rest of our life of torture, mental trauma that maybe gets resolved or maybe doesn't. So that was kind of the dark, well, was very much so the dark wave that I got pulled into then throughout that experience. Unfortunately, but everything teaches us something in life, and that's what makes me very passionate about teaching the positive way, like you do, that I absolutely believe can build champions just as well, if not better, and build great humans too.
Mm-hmm.
Leave the sport, and they're not just gymnasts who have won a medal, but they're humans that go on to continue winning in their lives because they were built up instead of beat down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. And I believe it too, that you can prioritize the human and the human experience and still have amazing results and be a champion. And do you believe that? I think that there's this big misconception that if you take your foot off the gas and you don't have your foot all the way to the floor, and if you're not tough and pushing through, that you can't be great. What's your perspective on that? Can
Mm-hmm,
someone be
mm-hmm.
kind to themselves? Can you have a kind coach and still rise to that elite level of sport? What do you think?
I think absolutely yes. And I think it needs to be a good team between the coach, the parents, and the gymnast. And the gymnast, for one, needs to know that it's not going to be easy. You know, just because your coach, a respectful coach and a good coach doesn't always mean a nice coach. Like sometimes you need to do 5 routines if you want to do well at the meet. If you have injuries, that's a different story, you know. But moral is the gymnast needs to know that it's going to be very, very hard work, and it's going to take a lot of time and dedication. And sometimes you are going to feel like your mind is like, I got to do another routine. And I can't bring myself to it. Okay, I can do this. I got to bring myself to this. And I have to get through this because this is the level, this is the elite level. A very small percentage exist in this type of work ethic. So they need to know that that's what they're getting into and be willing to give that side of it. Um, some of the best coaches in the world, after going through this, I have been traveling all over because I'm like, I have to find out if there's a way. There has to be a different way. And I have met some of the most incredible coaches, one of which is Al Fong, another is Kim Semeskel. Al has an amazing story, and through his coaching, he has learned a lot and he teaches a lot of his website. So shout out to Al Fong. No sponsor, but I love that. I love everything he shares. No ad, but truly, he teaches a lot. He teaches how to teach, and he believes a lot in organic growth. So not this, like you were saying, like the push, 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 but the gymnast is going to pick up on it organically and naturally. And he does a lot of video where he will video it and then turn it and say, okay, what do you think needs to happen? And then the little girl, instead of getting a demand or a command and being obedient, she sees what she needs to do, and she intentionally makes the change instead of just following demands. Does that make sense? So it's
Yeah.
really cool. I like that because it's very like intrinsic motivation, um, that also ties into how you were saying, being able to make your own decisions and your own movements as an individual, and not just being reliant on someone else telling you what to do. I love that. And Kim speaks a lot on teaching girls how to trust themselves and believing in them and respecting them, teaching them that it's hard work, but I respect you and you can do this. Like she's a very like she instills so much you can do this into the girls, which I really like. And I've met one of my biggest inspirations is Kyla Ross. We did a camp
Mm.
together. We did 2 camps together actually a couple years ago, and she's like, honestly, it's like I never like dealt with that. Like I didn't. I mean, she's one of the most famed gymnasts in history, and she's like, I didn't have to go through that. Like I just came and I did what I need to do. I did my work, and my coaches taught me, and we did it. Like like wasn't necessary.
Her coaches listened to her.
Yeah.
Like, what a concept. And she made it to the Olympics and she got more tens in NCAA history. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
major statistics. She's like the 10 queen who just had a coach that listened.
Yeah.
She didn't
Yeah.
have to get her leg slammed into the bar to get those tens.
Right. 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 And that's when I say like the gymnast has to be willing to give, because if it's going to be a coach like trying to drag the gymnast to the top, it's never going to work. She's going to get burnt out. She's going to get hurt because her head and her heart's not in it. She's going to leave with years of trauma. And so the gymnast's heart has to be in it. She's got to be willing to work hard. And the parents, that has to come on board too, because parents, I think, also need to be there for the gymnast, and supporting her as much as they can, and also respecting the coach and what the coach's role is, respecting and trusting the coach. And I think each need to work in their own way for what their own role is, and work as a team. Um, and I'm getting in the splits as I'm a gymnast, and more coming on the split. And so, yeah, so I do think, and I also study a lot of the science behind it. And, when we have negative thoughts, which are directly related to our negative emotions, it lowers our muscle, our strength and our muscles up to 50%. And I think that's absolutely incredible, because I think about competing. I'm like, how are we supposed to compete with only 50% of our strength?
Wow. It's incredible. I do an exercise where I have people close their eyes and say their most common negative thought over and over to themselves. I do it in a group, and you see everyone's shoulders shrink and everyone's heads drop, and the energy in the room just gets sucked out the bottom, and they all open their eyes, and I go, how's your energy? How's your confidence? And they're like, ugh. 20 seconds of that. And I go, if you were about to get up on a beam and do a series right now, how would it go? And they're like, yuck. And I'm like, is this a familiar feeling? And 100% of them, nod their head and say, yes, this is a very familiar feeling. And then we just switch it to neutral. We don't even go like, I'm the best. We go, I have legs. I've done this before. It's like you find something neutral and do 20 seconds of that. And you're like, oh, okay, I am okay now. I go, how would your series feel? And then for those who are a little bit more in touch with their positivity, they can actually go full positive. But some kids are so negative. They're so used to that negative reinforcement that they can't even say something positive without it feeling like a lie internally. And it's like the physical manifestation of just the thoughts in your mind. It's mind-blowing. Like, it's mind-blowing. If you go in a bad mood, what happens to your skills? Like, it's so important to be, I think, in an environment where you are nurturing that optimistic, that Kim Zmeskal, like, you can do this. You can do it, like, fills your body with fire, just those thoughts and those beliefs about yourself. It's like, I get all excited just thinking about it.
Yes, I know. Look at us. We're like, let's go do bars. Like,
Totally.
Absolutely. I think that is so incredible what you're doing. And we need more people who have your intelligence and expertise, because with your knowledge, you're able to dissect the problem and see it and help them see it for what it is, and then build up in a new way that's gonna help them go towards their goals. Whereas normally with mental blocks, it's, I'm going to threaten you. If you don't do this, you have a rope climb. If you don't do this, you're not going to compete. It's like, let's just threaten them, because that's the easy thing to do. It's the easiest, a lazy thing to do. Let's just threaten them. But your knowledge is so priceless, and I really applaud you. And thank you. I was a mental block queen. I would have loved to have you. Were you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like the whole reason I quit at age 14, because I thought I couldn't get through it. And ladies and gentlemen, Sophia Campana, the elite national team member, had mental blocks, because guess what? Everybody does. It happens to literally everybody. It's normal. It's normal. It's a part of your brain is trying to keep you safe, but it's like demonized. It happens to everybody. Kyla Ross had to repeat level 5 twice because she couldn't go backwards on beam. Like, it happens to everybody. And it's just this belief that it's going to keep you stuck that keeps you stuck. Like, it didn't keep you stuck, right?
So true. Yeah. And you just posted something the other day. It was like, I'm not going to say it right. You said it so perfectly. It was like, basically like demonizing it just makes it worse.
Yeah. Thinking the spot is a problem is what makes it a problem. It's not a problem. Get a spot and build your confidence.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, I could hang out with you all day. So I would love to know as we wrap up, if you could
Sure.
see one major change happen in the sport of gymnastics, if you could magic wand and make just one major thing change in our sport, what would you want to see shift?
I think emotional intelligence should be, I would love to see coaches have more of an emotional intelligence because I think it would be such a benefit for the athletes, but also for themselves because coaching is hard and you have a lot of pressure on you as a coach, especially if, it's your job and you're getting paid to send girls to certain meets and make whatever championships. And so I think emotional intelligence and support in that way for the athletes and the coaches would help us all a lot to come together and more and be stronger in that way.
And make gymnastics a better place for all. Yeah, I
Yeah,
totally agree. I totally agree. Sophia, it was so
cool.
nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
You too.
And
We better
for
not hang
everyone
out or
who
we'll be talking for hours.
I know. And so if anybody wants to find you, I know you are ever present on the internet, but where can people find you if they haven't already?
So Sophia Campana, Sophia_Campana. YouTube, I just opened an English YouTube channel because my primary YouTube channel is all in Italian, Sophia Land Gymnastics. And on TikTok, same thing, Sophia Land Gymnastics.
Awesome. It was such a pleasure getting to know you today. Keep doing what you're doing. And thank you again for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for doing what you're doing. And the more we come together, I think the bigger of a change we can make as a team. So
Absolutely.
thank you.